I'm gonna tell you about the P2. Under your crotch, that is the most prevalent, most winning. Sup, Trainiacs. Since I announced that I would be riding this Cervelo P2 about a month and a half ago that I was set up with from my boys and gal over at Alter Ego Sports here in Winnipeg, everyone's been asking, hey Taryn, how do you like the P2? Should I get a P2? Where can I get a P2? Tell us more about the P2. So today, I'm gonna tell you about the P2. Now that I've got, I would say somewhere around 500, 600 kilometers in it, and I did a race that went really smashingly, I can confidently talk about the P2, particularly in relation to the 5-year-old P3. I want to say that it's 5-year-old. And that puts a lot of what this current 2016 P2 is into perspective. Let's do it. Now, this here, like I say, a 2016 P2 with Shimano 105. I have Alto C59 wheels on that are made for 28 mil wide tires, and the 59 is like a deep section wheel, but not so deep. It's not like a full aero wheel. It's more like an aero road wheel. I've got the ISM, I want to say ISM Road saddle on here. And other than that, it's basically entirely stock besides the accessories that I've put on with the bottle cage and the Garmin 520. Now, in relation to the old P3 that I've got, there's a bunch of notable features that I'll take you through. Now, the cockpit up here is basically identical. You've got a fair bit of adjustability, forward, backward, and the width of these pads here for your elbows. Now, what you give up with this bike that you don't get with a high-end bike is a huge amount of integration where the stem and the headset here all looks like one piece and all of the cable routing is internal and you get a nice clean aerodynamic cockpit here. You're not going to get that with entry-level bikes. Frankly, you're not even going to get that with a lot of second-tier bikes like current P3s. Does that mean that you're not going to be able to get the adjustability that you need? Well, it might, but typically not. For most people, this setup is going to be just fine. The one thing that I wasn't a fan of with this, it wasn't the fit, it wasn't the comfort, it wasn't being able to dial in a good position. It was actually the thinness of the handlebars, just identically to my P3. It's a very thin handlebar. I don't have big digits here, but it's a thin handlebar, and riding so much road lately over the last few years, I like a nice meaty grip that I can latch onto and kind of move my hand around and rest upon here, so that when I'm riding through the city, I've got a lot to grab onto. You don't have that here. You've got a very basic handlebar. Now, coming over here down to the headset area, this is a significant departure from all old P3s that I have particularly, and this is a new feature that this area, say right in here, is very built up. On my P3, I want to say that from that little triangle there, it's not as filled in as it is here. So you have, if you look at it from the side, just a huge amount of aerodynamics coming from one of the biggest windbreaks on the entire bike, and it's going to be able to wrap around that and be more aerodynamic. It's in a teardrop shape here at the back, and we've got a teardrop shape almost all the way down. It flattens out now at the bottle. The P3 did not, but this allows it to be apparently more aerodynamic with the bottle on the down tube than without. You've also got a slight cutout on the down tube around the wheel so that you've got more aerodynamics there. And basically this entire section, all here, will function in the wind as one piece. So you get a very, very aerodynamic front section, even in this entry-level tri-bike for Cervelo. The next major detraction from the P3 that I have is that the bottom bracket here is massive compared to my P3. And we're seeing that with almost all bikes, road bikes, tri-bikes, huge, huge bottom brackets. And why they're doing that is so that it's more stiff in the bottom where you're putting a ton of torque on with the cranks, and that stiffness in the bottom bracket is going to transfer over to the rest of the bike, so that more of the power that you're putting into the pedals goes into forward motion. Other than that, the seat stays and the chain stays are basically identical to the old P3 and more or less identical to the current P3. The current P3 has better components, better brakes, better shifters, better crank. I believe it has a bit of a different layup in the carbon, how it's put together. Something that is new with this P2 as opposed to my old P3 is that this back edge is blunted as opposed to the teardrop shape that we see here. It's flattened out. And apparently that works a little bit better in the crosswinds, whereas a pure teardrop is the most aerodynamic right front on. But fact of the matter is that wind tends to come from the side and the side, so that blunted edge on the back ends up making it overall more aerodynamic. You know, overall, how does it feel? Feels great. There isn't anything in here that I haven't been able to completely dial in with the same geometry that I was able to dial in with my old P3. It feels maybe just a hair stiffer while at the same time being just a little bit more compliant, it's called. Compliant is about comfort. That's how beat up you feel going over bumps for hours on end. And what I've found is that this feels just as stiff when I stand up to put power into it, or I start really hammering on the pedals for like a 5 or 10 minute above race pace interval. Feels really stiff and like there's a lot of power transfer coming from my pedals, but I don't feel nearly as beat up as I did on the old P3. And that's what a lot of the technology is trying to get towards. That's the ideal bike. A really, really stiff bike that is also a very comfortable bike. Now, what are the things that I don't like about it? Well, frankly, if I'm spending a ton of money on bikes, and we already, in my case, this bike build is getting to the $5,000–$6,000 range. If I'm spending that kind of dough, I might as well, in my opinion, go into like the $9,000–$10,000 range and get a whole lot more integration, because I've already gone through that first road bike, the first tri bike, the upgraded road bike. It's kind of just a matter of like, I want something newer and better. And in my case, that's things like an integrated cockpit, integrated nutrition pouches, integrated storage cans, maybe in behind the seat or on the down tube. But frankly, is this a bad bike? No, not at all. It is actually a very good bike. And you know what? I always tell people, don't go with the entry-level Shimano 105s on whatever bike you're getting. And I'm not saying that because the entry-level Shimano 105s are a bad component system. No, I'm saying that strictly because I think that Ultegra is better value for your dollar, and you'll have better resale value when you go to sell that bike. But it's not like if all you can afford is an entry-level tri-bike with Shimano 105, you're gonna get a bad bike. No, all bikes are awesome bikes these days. And basically, the entire thing that I wanna get across here, why I'm comparing it to the old gold standard P3 that is the most prevalent, most winning tri-bike, I think, in all of history, is that now you can get basically a better bike than that absolutely phenomenal, prolific tri-bike in an entry-level price point. Pretty good deal if you ask me. Does that mean this is my dream bike? No. Does that mean that this bike should be under your crutch someday in the future? Absolutely.